Your rubber on your truck is going to be one of the most common things that go bad, old, and brittle, and you're going to need to replace. Sounds like it might be a difficult job, but it is not. My name is David Welch. I'm at Brothers Tech Center every single week showing you how to get your truck back on the road. Today we are working on Sal's 1962 Chevy pickup, and we're going to go ahead and rebuild his vent window for him. So I've got all my pieces. Make sure you think everything out. You get all the peripherals, you get all your door rubber that's going to be needed at the same time so that you don't have to get halfway through a project and find out you don't have everything. First thing I want to show you on this vent window right here is this lock right here. What you got to do is bend those tabs down on either side, and then that will allow you to unbolt this right here. And when you take this off, it has several washers that are kind of specific, and they go in a specific order. Now, I am a bit dyslexic and I can never keep track of how it goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a zip tie here, and as we take things off, we're simply going to put them right on here, and then we don't have to worry about the order it came in. So it's going to be the nut, then it's going to be your lock right here. And then sometimes there's a washer down there. This one doesn't have it. Put the spring on. You've got this washer right here. I want you to notice this washer. I don't know if you can tell in the center, it is not round. It's a specific shape, and the ends are flat, just like this shaft right here is. This other washer right here, it is round. This is actually a nylon washer. The nylon washer sits against the metal, and it makes it so it pivots easier. So we'll go ahead and put these guys on, and then that'll be all set. In order to get the rest of these guys out, I'll need to take this apart a little bit more, and what we're going to do on that is that you have rivets right here, and we're going to take a Dremel tool and we're going to carefully get those rivets off. On the top right here there are also rivets, but there is also a Phillips head screwdriver right here. So you can take that and unscrew this. This is a really specific nut. It's really hard to find, so do not lose this because it's a little son of a gun. So let me get these rivets off of here, and then I'll show you what comes next. Got my tip ground down. I can just put something underneath here like this. Put a little punchy right there. And that comes out nice and easy. Over here we got the same thing. Now don't get too aggressive with this. We can't bend up the frame or anything, so maybe you'll have to get in there and grind it again. Maybe you'll have to use a drill. Maybe you'll have to grind from the other side, but whatever you got to do, you make sure that you do it as nice and gentle as possible, because once this gets bent up, it makes everything more difficult. Nice. Okay, so here we're set. The top right here, it just has a pivot. And I'm just going to pull that out gently so that I can get to this side a little bit. Now I can pull this glass out the rest of the way. And I have to watch these washers in here and make sure that they don't go bouncing around and end up missing on me. Okay, and I want you to notice these guys too. They're very specific. Again, the round nylon washer goes against the metal here, but this guy, you can see it's like the other one, but one end is flat right here. And what happens is that goes in there like this, and it keeps the vent window from opening up too far. Put that on our zip tie, and we're all good to go. Set that to the side. Now we'll go ahead and take the rubber out of here. Again, you got to be gentle because this rubber is old and brittle and it's stuck in here. Trying to take it out, you could easily bend this up, so take time getting that out of there. Okay, that took me about 20 minutes to get all of the old brittle rubber out of there. So it can take you some time. You can also see that this is, you know, not that tough, so be careful with it. Now I'll take this old rubber off of this piece. Here though, I'll use a drill bit and I'm just gonna drill the tip of the rivet off. I don't want to go through, I don't want to enlarge my hole. I just want to take the tip off. Now the reason I don't use the Dremel on here is because it's got this rubber and makes more of a mess, and you can get to these rivets easy. So notice when I have just the tip of it off, and I can punch it through nice and easy like, but do not drill all the way through. So this piece will come off just nice and easy like that. Now we'll take our two pieces and we'll clean them all up. All right, I masked off my parts, I cleaned them all up, I painted them all up, so we're looking good, and we're gonna go ahead and start putting things back together again. What we're gonna need to do first is put a rubber in our frame right here. Now this does take a little bit of time. I'm gonna use some glass cleaner here. It's the foamy kind, and I'm really gonna get things nice and soaked up here. This is gonna take you a little bit of time, like I said. It is a bit frustrating, so just get used to that. Make sure that you've got the right side and the left side in the correct position, because they look pretty much the same. So you're going to have to double check and make sure that you get it on the right side. One of the other things I recommend is do not take both of your vent windows apart at the same time, because then you're going to get all confused about who's right and left. Do one at a time so you have the other one to look to see how to get it back together. Now on this right here, what you're going to do is make sure you've got the short side to the short side and the long side to the long side here. You'll also notice that there's a hole in the top where the glass pivots, and there's also a hole in the rubber right here where the glass pivots. So we're going to match all of those guys up. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. When you're starting on the edge right here, you can just go ahead and slide this guy on a lot of times. But you're only going to be able to slide it on to a certain degree, and then you're going to get to the corner. And what has to happen there is you've got a C in there, and you got to get the rubber kind of positioned on one side, and then you use a plastic spatula like this, and you're going to push the other one up underneath. You'll have to flip it back and forth and work on that for a while. Do not use any oil. Don't use WD-40 or anything like that, because it'll soak into the rubber, it'll make it a bloody mess, and it'll make it a lot harder to get in. So this is going to take me a little bit, so just give me some time on that. Now you'll notice on this side right here, the rubber really covers up the edge a lot. So I'll generally put it on this side. This edge doesn't cover as much. I'll go ahead and I'll take the bottom edge and I'm sliding it in, getting it as snugged up there as much as I can, and then I'll start at the edge and try to tuck it up under. Okay, now your center, getting your center in, it's pretty easy. The corners is the kicker. So once you get your center in and you get your ends on, then you're going to go ahead and work the corner. You'll need to not only push in there, but you'll need to pull the rubber into the corner from the middle and on the edges here. Make sure that these are fitting in exactly right. I want you to take a look at this right here. Okay, you see how this little piece of metal is hanging over? You don't have your rubber on this side. You make sure that it's tucked in behind there and that this is on correctly. So we'll go ahead and just keep working this until we make sure that it's in the corners properly, and then I'll double check the rest of it. So now I'm just going to make sure that my holes line up in my top and in my bottom. A lot of times there will be some leftover rubber from manufacturing that you'll need to get out of there. So what you'll do on things like that is just simply take a drill or something, and you can go ahead and put it in the hole and clear out any extra rubber that might be in there. Same thing can be said for this piece right here. The rivets are going to go through a pretty small hole right here, and sometimes, or most of the time, they're going to be plugged up with some residue rubber. So we're going to make sure that those holes are cleared out too. I can put these two together now. So what I'm going to do is just, again, get stuff so that I can get this in easy. When you put your lower piece in, you got to remember that you have some washers and stuff to put on. So again, your nylon washer, that goes against moving parts, and the metal one right here, it's going to go on first. So put these two guys on first, and then you'll have to get the whole kit and caboodle on. This is going to make it a little bit tougher to move. So a lot of times what you got to do is push down on the shaft and then push the washers up at the same time. Now at the top right here, there's just the hole. Here's your pin. And you're going to gently pull this up and get it into spot. Let's see, make sure I'm all the way down on the bottom first. Okay. All right, that is good. We're all set. We got the rest here. So we're pulling these off. Nylon washer first, metal washer. I'll put just a little bit of grease on those there. Got our spring. We've got our lock. And then we've got our nut. So when you tighten this down, you don't want to go too much because it'll make it too difficult to open up the window. You really don't tighten it down all that much. So we're going to go about right there, and then we're going to test it and see what it feels like. So it should be relatively difficult to turn, because if this is too loose when you're driving down the road, it's just going to flop around on you. If it's too tight, then that's going to be a problem too. But we got this perfect, and now I'll go ahead and I'll move my nut here so that the flat side is correct position with my lock. I'll put those guys down and it's all set. Maybe a little bit more grease for kicks. This is ready to go on this, so next we're going to prep this up. This rubber piece here, as the rest of it, is held on with the little rivets that you're going to need to order the same time that you order your rubber. I'm going to go ahead and do a practice run on this so you can see how it goes in. You're also going to need this specific tool right here. You can kind of see in the center in there, I'm not sure if it shows up on camera, but it has a very specific end on it that'll mushroom out the end of the rivet. So let's see if I can show you how that works out here. You're just going to use a light hammer, and I'm not trying to mash everything down at once. Taking a look occasionally to see that it's coming down evenly. It's easy to get it kitty-catty corner. So you can see it mushroomed out there. I didn't exactly get that totally perfect, but it should look something like that when it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and take that rivet out of there, then I'll put on my rubber piece. Okay, as I mentioned before, sometimes there will be a little bit of slag rubber left over, so I'll trim those little pieces off. It's not much, you can see just here on the end a little bit. Take that off. Make sure my holes are all cleared out. My rivet's not going to get jammed up. And then what I've done here is I've used a punch, and the reason I've used a punch to put these in is because the holes on the back side here, they're recessed into this metal frame, and in order to have my rivet make total contact, I'm going to need that punch right there so it's holding on steady. I've got a box right here on the other end help keep everything sturdy. So I'm going to go ahead and get my rivets in there. How I make them stay in when I'm doing this is I just use a little bit of tape. So I'll put one in. There we go. Then we'll get some tape, hold it in there. And we want to get all 4 holes. So you'll notice that this rubber has an edge right here. This edge is going to go up against this edge right here. Your rivet holes should line up exactly. You should have cleaned them out, and then they should fit right in the hole nice and easy like. I'll get all of these set on here. Okay. I'll make sure that my rivet is right on my punch. And then I'm going to nice and gentle like crown this head down. Now this is a little bit tougher because this rubber's kind of in your way. You're going to need to pry it back some and get this tool on. Okay. Make sure we're there. Okay, it's looking good. Then you just go to the next one and the next one. I've got all my rivets crowned out, but I have to make sure that they are below the rubber line. If they're sticking up, when you shut your glass, it's going to hit. So I'll just get another punch and I'll put it on top, and then I'll hammer it down and I'll feel and make sure that that rivet is below the rubber. Our 2 pieces are ready to marry together. I'm going to take this little bit of slag rubber out right here so that they will fit together properly. And then it's nice if you can bend these ends up just a little bit. And the reason that we're going to do that is because we want to try to tuck this rubber here into this rubber right here. So we'll get that tucked in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the screw right here that we kept and didn't lose. And then I'm going to get just a small nut and bolt down at the bottom end and bolt it up. Once I've got it bolted up, screwed together, then I can go ahead and get my rivets in with a little bit more ease. Tighten our little screw at the top here. Got a nut and bolt right here, bolting this in. Reason that we're doing that is I can't have any gap in this bracket right here, or when I'm mashing down my rivet, a lot of times it'll save that gap and it'll make it all flimsy. So we've got this nice and tight and secure. I've got my rivet placed in from this side. I've got my metal block right here, and I'm setting this down. And now I'll go ahead and mushroom out that head. I'll get it all nice and firm. Then I'll take out my nut and bolt and go ahead and get my other rivet in there. Now you might say to yourself, well, why don't I just leave the nut and bolt in there? I suppose you can, but over the past, whenever I've seen them used, they always seem to come loose and you have a problem. The rivets aren't as likely to do that. I'll need to reposition my block right here, and then I'll need to put the rivet in from the back side on here. Now I can mushroom this last rivet out. So with our last rivet done, this is all set. The last thing I like to do here is a couple of things. One, I'll shut the glass, and then I'll lock it right here, and that'll let the glass mold into the rubber and make a really nice seal. Now we're going to need to put this guy right here in, and sometimes some guys don't glue these, but I like to. There's a little bit of trick to the glue though. What you want to do on something like this is not just put it on one side. If I put this on just right here, and then I try to stick it in there, more than likely it is not going to glue in properly. Also, you want to be careful with this stuff. It kind of tends to just get everywhere and make a mess. So you don't have to use a ton of it, and I'm just using it on the center right in here. But the trick is that you have to put it on both sides of whatever you're gluing, not just one side. So just that minimum amount right there. Then I can carefully take this. I'll start at the top. I have to make sure that I don't have any gaps at this top right here. And then I just simply mush it right in there. All right, we're looking good. We're even all the way at the top. Now, when you're doing something like this, don't forget the peripheral things you'll need. For instance, you can see this handle right here is looking pretty old and tired, and it sure would look nice if I had a new one up against my new paint. Now, sometimes these are just not repairable. They're just too old and beat up. That's okay because we make them brand new for you also. Now, the reason I've gone ahead and rebuilt this guy right here, this is for Sal's 1962 Chevy pickup behind me right here. I've got a video on how to do all of your rubber on your 60 to 63. If you go to this link right here, the one we have down below, you're going to be able to see how to rebuild your whole door with your vent window assembly at the same time. So you be sure and check that out. And subscribe, of course, because I'm going to be doing another one next week. You're going to want to see that one too. If you don't subscribe, you're going to really feel bad about it. We'll see you next week.